While the thunder of battle roared across Europe and the vast fleets clashed in the Pacific, another desperate, grinding struggle was unfolding in one of World War II's most brutal and forgotten theaters, China-Burma-India, CBI. Here, the fight was not just against the formidable Imperial Japanese Army, but against an even more relentless and unforgiving enemy, nature itself. Mountains, dense jungles, malarial swamps, and torrential monsoons conspired to make this a battlefield unlike any other, where every mile gained was a testament to unimaginable human endurance. By 1942, the situation for the Allies in this theater was dire. Japan's lightning-fast conquest of Burma had cut off the crucial Burma Road, China's last reliable land link for receiving vital supplies from the Allies. With the Chinese nationalist forces, under Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, battling the Japanese for years and desperately needing aid to stay in the war, the loss of this supply artery threatened total collapse. Keeping China fighting was a cornerstone of Allied strategy, tying up millions of Japanese troops who would otherwise be free to reinforce other Pacific fronts. But with the Burma Road closed, supplies could only reach China via a treacherous and incredibly dangerous air route over the Himalayan hump, a logistical bottleneck that was both insufficient and unsustainable for the massive needs of a fighting army. For the Japanese High Command, this geographical and logistical stranglehold on China was a strategic triumph. They believed the vast, impenetrable mountain ranges and dense jungles separating India from China created an impassable barrier, guaranteeing that no significant land-based supply route could ever be established. They confidently calculated that China would eventually be starved into submission, freeing up their forces for the defense of their rapidly expanding empire. The jungle itself was seen as their ultimate, unbreachable ally, guaranteeing that the Allies could never effectively supply Chiang Kai-shek's armies. But just as in other theaters, Allied ingenuity, driven by absolute necessity, would challenge these assumptions. A radical, seemingly impossible plan was conceived: to build a new, direct land route from India through the northern Burmese jungle and mountains, all the way to China. This wasn't merely a road, it was to be a lifeline, an artery carved through hellish terrain, a testament to engineering prowess and sheer human grit against both nature and a determined enemy. This was the genesis of the Ledo Road, later officially renamed the Stilwell Road, after General Joseph Vinegar Joe Stilwell, who championed its construction. This video will uncover the incredible, untold story of this monumental feat of engineering, a brutal, 1,000-mile odyssey waged by predominantly American, Indian, Chinese, and crucially, African-American engineer battalions. These unsung heroes battled not only the relentless Japanese, but also malarial fevers, dysentery, leeches, venomous snakes, and the crushing weight of the monsoon rains, all while carving a highway to hell through the unforgiving wilderness. The Ledo Road was more than just a logistical marvel. It was a powerful, unseen force that ultimately helped break Japan's will in the Pacific. It proved that sometimes, victory is paved not with asphalt, but with raw human endurance against impossible odds, literally charting a path to liberation where none was thought possible. This was the road to hell and back, and its construction reshaped the very landscape of the forgotten Eastern Front. The strategic situation for the Allies in the China-Burma-India, CBI, theater by 1942 was nothing short of desperate. China, under Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, had been fighting a brutal, undeclared war against Imperial Japan since 1937. For 5 grueling years, Chinese forces had tied up millions of Japanese troops, preventing their deployment to other crucial Pacific fronts where America and Britain were fighting. Keeping China in the war, and supplied, was a cornerstone of Allied grand strategy. But Japan's relentless aggression had effectively crippled China's ability to receive aid. The loss of Burma to the Japanese in early 1942 was a catastrophic blow. Burma was not only a source of vital raw materials but also contained the Burma Road, China's last reliable overland supply route from the outside world. With the Japanese now occupying Burma, that road was decisively cut. Suddenly, China was effectively isolated, a vast, besieged nation facing a modern, well-equipped Japanese army with rapidly dwindling resources. The scale of China's needs was immense. To sustain its millions of soldiers, let alone its civilian population, China required a continuous flow of ammunition, weapons, medical supplies, food, and, crucially, fuel for its limited but vital mechanized units and air force. Without these supplies, the Chinese war effort would inevitably collapse, freeing up those millions of Japanese troops to reinforce Japan's beleaguered positions in the Pacific or to mount new offensives elsewhere in Asia. With the Burma Road closed, the only remaining lifeline to China was an aerial route over the treacherous Himalayan mountains, famously known as the Hump. This was one of the most dangerous aerial missions of the entire war. Pilots, many of them inexperienced, flew unpressurized, unarmed transport planes, primarily C-40XS and C-47s, over jagged, unmapped peaks, battling extreme turbulence, sudden weather changes, the infamous monsoon clouds, high altitudes, and the constant threat of Japanese fighter patrols. The route was littered with wrecked aircraft, earning it grim nicknames like the Skyway to Hell or the Aluminum Trail. While heroic, the Hump was an utterly insufficient logistical solution for the scale of China's needs. Its capacity was severely limited by aircraft availability, weather, and the sheer dangers of the route. At its peak, it delivered thousands of tons per month, but this was a trickle compared to the tens of thousands of tons required by a fighting army. The supply bottleneck was throttling China's ability to resist. For the Japanese High Command, this logistical stranglehold was a strategic masterpiece. They believed the natural barriers of the Himalayan ranges to the north, combined with the dense, malarial jungles and treacherous rivers of northern Burma, created an impenetrable shield. They saw no plausible way for the Allies to establish a significant land route to replace the Burma Road. This conviction formed a crucial part of their strategy, allowing them to focus their defensive efforts elsewhere, confident that China would eventually be forced out of the war by starvation, not by direct military defeat. The jungle itself was their silent, unbreachable ally. Against this backdrop of a crippled China, a perilous aerial lifeline, and confident enemy predictions, Allied strategists faced an urgent imperative: find a way to break the logistical bottleneck. The solution, if one could be found, would have to defy geography, conquer nature, and overcome the most determined enemy resistance. It would mean carving a new path to China, a road where none was thought possible, a highway to hell that promised to turn China from a crippled giant into a fighting force once more. Faced with the desperate strategic reality of China's isolation and the utterly insufficient capacity of the Hump airlift, Allied planners were forced to consider radical solutions. Traditional military doctrine balked at the idea of building a new, 1,000-mile road through the notorious northern Burmese jungle and mountains during wartime. It seemed an impossible task, a logistical and engineering nightmare on a scale rarely contemplated. Yet, the strategic imperative of keeping China in the war was so immense that failure to try was not an option. The audacious plan was championed by General Joseph W. Vinegar Joe Stilwell, the irascible and determined American commander of the China-Burma-India theater. Stilwell, known for his bluntness and relentless drive, was deeply committed to revitalizing the Chinese army and opening a secure overland supply route. He famously declared, "I claim we got a hell of a beating. We got run out of Burma, and it is as humiliating as hell. I think we ought to find out what caused it, go back and retake it." This resolve extended to building the road necessary for that retaking. The vision was to construct a new road, initially dubbed the Ledo Road, after its starting point at Ledo in Assam, India, that would eventually connect to the old Burma Road in northern Burma and then onward into China. The proposed route was geographically brutal. Impenetrable jungle. Starting in Assam, the road had to cut through some of the densest, most humid, and malarial jungle in the world. This wasn't just thick vegetation, it was a living, breathing, hostile environment filled with insects, leeches, venomous snakes, and constant fungal rot. Treacherous mountains, the route traversed the foothills of the Himalayan mountains, requiring the construction of roads up steep gradients, around sheer cliffs, and over numerous mountain passes, all while battling unstable soil and constant landslides. Countless waterways, hundreds of rivers, streams, and ravines intersected the path, necessitating the construction of thousands of bridges and culverts, many of them major engineering feats in themselves. Malarial swamps. Much of the low-lying jungle was swampy and infested with disease-carrying mosquitoes, making every construction camp a potential death trap. The sheer scale of the engineering challenge was unprecedented for a wartime road project. This wasn't merely clearing a path, it was building a modern, all-weather highway capable of handling heavy military truck traffic from scratch in active combat zones. It required massive earth-moving. Thousands of tons of earth and rock had to be cut and filled, often by hand or with primitive equipment, against constant erosion. Bridge building. The construction of 700 bridges, some hundreds of feet long, and 10,000 culverts was required, demanding constant work from specialized engineer units. Drainage systems. In a region notorious for torrential monsoon rains, up to 100 inches annually, elaborate drainage systems were essential to prevent the road from washing away. Airfield construction. Along the route, numerous airfields had to be built or expanded to support the logistical air bridge and provide tactical air support for the road builders. Oil pipelines. Crucially, a parallel 4-inch oil pipeline was built alongside the road for much of its length, designed to pump fuel directly from India to China, alleviating the need for countless tanker trucks. The construction of the Ledo Road was not just an engineering project, it was a military campaign in itself, a relentless battle against nature, disease, and the Japanese. The audaciousness of the plan was matched only by the incredible determination of the engineers and workers who would undertake it. For the Japanese, such a project was considered utterly impossible, reinforcing their confidence in China's isolation. But for the Allies, the Ledo Road represented the only viable path to turning the tide in the CBI theater, transforming China from a crippled giant into a fighting force once more. This was to be a true road through hell, meticulously planned, fiercely fought for, and ultimately, a lifeline that would reshape the very landscape of the war. The monumental task of carving the Ledo Road through the unforgiving jungles and mountains of Burma demanded an army of builders as tenacious as the terrain itself. This was a human engine fueled by immense grit, diverse backgrounds, and an unwavering, often unsung, dedication to the mission. While the strategic vision came from Allied command, the actual construction was carried out by a remarkable coalition of predominantly American, Indian, Chinese, and, crucially, African-American engineer battalions. Their story is one of profound sacrifice, skill, and perseverance, battling not only nature and the enemy but also the insidious forces of racial prejudice. At the core of the construction effort were the United States Army Engineer Battalions. Among these, the African-American units played an utterly indispensable role. Despite facing systemic racial segregation within the U.S. military, being assigned to service roles, and often denied opportunities for combat, these men were thrust into one of the most vital, dangerous, and physically grueling tasks of the entire war. Companies like the 188th, 189th, 381st, 384th, and 385th Engineer Battalions became the backbone of the Ledo Road effort. They operated heavy machinery, cleared jungle, built bridges, and laid asphalt, proving their immense capabilities and courage under conditions that broke lesser men. Their contribution was so massive that a large portion of the road was literally built by their hands and machines. Alongside the American engineers were Indian laborers. Thousands of local Indian laborers, recruited from the Assam region, provided essential manpower. They performed much of the grueling manual labor, clearing jungle with axes and machetes, digging drainage ditches, and moving earth, often working under incredibly harsh conditions. Their intimate knowledge of the local terrain and climate was invaluable. Chinese engineer troops. As the road pushed deeper into Burma, Chinese engineer units, often trained and equipped by the Americans, joined the effort. These troops were not only skilled builders but also highly motivated to open a supply route to their embattled homeland. Burmese nationals. Local Burmese civilians, often displaced by the conflict, also contributed labor, sometimes reluctantly, but often out of necessity. The engineers, regardless of nationality or racial background, faced an unceasing barrage of challenges that would have halted any lesser force. Disease. Malaria was rampant, earning the jungle the nickname Death's Waiting Room. Dysentery, scrub typhus, dengue fever, and cholera were also endemic. Mosquitoes, leeches, and other parasites were a constant scourge. Disease often incapacitated more men than direct enemy action. Climate. The monsoon season was a hellish annual event. Torrential rains could drop 100 inches of water in a few months, turning the newly built road into a mud pit, triggering landslides, and washing away entire sections of highway and bridges. The oppressive humidity and heat were constant. Terrain. The dense, tangled jungle fought back at every turn. Trees had to be cut, roots cleared, and rocky outcrops blasted. The steep gradients of the Patkai Mountains made road building a relentless uphill battle against unstable soil. Japanese resistance. While the main Japanese front was to the south, constant skirmishes, ambushes, and guerrilla attacks by bypassed Japanese units and local insurgents were a persistent threat. The engineers were literally building a road in a combat zone, often under armed guard or engaging the enemy themselves. The drivers of the thousands of trucks that would eventually traverse the road also faced unimaginable dangers. They were mostly Indian and Chinese, later joined by more African American soldiers. They navigated perilous mountain passes, treacherous muddy stretches, and the constant threat of enemy attack, all while pushing their vehicles to their absolute limits. The construction of the Ledo Road became a melting pot of nationalities and cultures, united by a common, monumental purpose. The skill and courage of the African American engineer battalions, in particular, often shattered racial stereotypes through their sheer competence and dedication. Their story is a powerful reminder that the arsenal of democracy was not just built in factories, but carved out of the earth by diverse hands, demonstrating a tenacity that ultimately defied both nature's fury and the enemy's determination. This human engine, battling against impossible odds, literally paved the way for victory in one of WWII's most grueling and forgotten theaters. The construction of the Ledo Road was not merely a matter of clearing jungle. It was an unparalleled feat of civil engineering, conducted under unimaginable pressure and hostile conditions. Every mile demanded ingenuity, improvisation, and relentless effort from the diverse engineer battalions. They were literally building a modern highway where none had ever existed, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible in wartime road construction. This section will delve into the incredible engineering solutions that formed the backbone of this road to hell and back. One of the most formidable challenges was the sheer number of water crossings. The mountainous and jungle terrain was crisscrossed by hundreds of rivers, streams, and ravines, from small gullies to major waterways like the Irrawaddy River. To conquer these, the engineers had to construct an astonishing 700 bridges and 10,000 culverts along the road's eventual 1,079-mile length. This meant building an average of one bridge every 1.5 miles and 10 culverts for every mile. Improvised bridge building. Many smaller bridges were built rapidly using local timber, often felled and processed on site. However, for larger crossings, more sophisticated structures were required, often utilizing Bailey bridges, prefabricated, modular truss bridges developed by the British, or robust steel girder bridges. Engineers worked under constant threat of monsoon floods washing away their work, often rebuilding sections multiple times. Culverts for drainage. The thousands of culverts were critical. In a region that received up to 100 inches of rainfall annually during the monsoon, effective drainage was paramount to prevent the road from turning into a permanent quagmire and washing away. These ranged from simple timber pipes to more elaborate stone and concrete structures, all designed to channel water away efficiently. Beyond the water crossings, the road itself presented immense engineering hurdles. The jungle terrain, with its steep gradients and unstable soil, required massive earth-moving operations. Bulldozers, graders, and steam shovels, often operating at their mechanical limits, carved paths through the dense vegetation. Where machines couldn't go, or when they broke down, the work reverted to pickaxes, shovels, and brute human strength. Rock faces had to be blasted away, often under the constant threat of Japanese snipers, with engineers literally clinging to cliffsides to set charges. A crucial yet often overlooked parallel engineering effort was the construction of a 4-inch oil pipeline alongside the entire length of the road. This pipeline was a strategic stroke of genius. It was designed to pump fuel directly from refineries in India, parallel to the road, all the way to China. This relieved an enormous burden on the trucking convoys, which would otherwise have had to transport every gallon of fuel, severely limiting their capacity for other vital supplies. The pipeline was laid in sections, often by hand, through the same treacherous terrain as the road, battling leaks, punctures, and the relentless jungle. At its peak, this little-inch pipeline was capable of delivering over 600,000 gallons of fuel daily to China. The materials themselves posed a logistical nightmare. Every piece of heavy equipment, every steel girder for a bridge, every barrel of cement, every length of pipe, had to be transported hundreds of miles from Indian railheads to the ever-advancing roadhead. This required constant maintenance of the already constructed sections of the Ledo Road, which perpetually fought against jungle reclamation, landslides, and monsoon damage. The sheer audacity and complexity of this engineering project were astonishing. It was a brutal, relentless grind, where every foot of progress was hard-won against an active enemy and an environment that seemed determined to reclaim any ground taken. The Ledo Road, with its thousands of bridges and culverts, its formidable cuts and fills, and its vital parallel pipeline, was not just a symbol of Allied determination. It was a physical manifestation of human will transforming an impossible landscape, literally paving the way for victory in the CBI theater. While Allied engineers battled the formidable terrain and Japanese patrols, they also faced an unseen, relentless enemy that proved far more debilitating and deadly than enemy bullets: disease. The northern Burmese jungle was a truly hostile environment, a breeding ground for illnesses that incapacitated tens of thousands of men, threatening to halt the construction of the Ledo Road as effectively as any Japanese offensive. Coupled with the brutal climate, the jungle itself became a furious, active combatant in the road to hell and back. Malaria, the silent killer. Malaria was the most devastating and widespread scourge. The hot, humid, and perpetually wet conditions of the jungle, combined with the abundance of mosquitoes, made it an endemic threat. Construction camps, often hastily erected near stagnant water, became breeding grounds for the disease. Whole units could be decimated, with hundreds of men falling ill simultaneously, suffering from high fevers, chills, and debilitating weakness. At times, malaria incapacitated more men than combat wounds. Preventative measures. Allied medical teams fought back relentlessly. Extensive anti-malarial campaigns were launched, involving daily doses of quinine and later atabrine, which had side effects like turning skin yellow, compulsory mosquito netting, draining stagnant water, and spraying DDT. Despite these efforts, malaria remained a constant and terrifying threat, demanding continuous vigilance. Beyond malaria, a litany of illnesses, the jungle harbored a host of other debilitating diseases. Dysentery and cholera. Poor sanitation and contaminated water sources led to widespread outbreaks of dysentery and, occasionally, cholera, rapidly weakening troops already pushed to their physical limits. Scrub typhus. Carried by mites, this disease caused severe fever, rashes, and could be fatal if untreated. Its prevalence underscored the need for meticulous hygiene and pest control. Dengue fever, another mosquito-borne illness, causing severe fever and body aches, adding to the misery. Jungle rot and fungal infections. The constant humidity and wet conditions led to pervasive skin infections, especially in the feet, known as jungle rot, which could make walking excruciating and disable men from duty. The monsoon's fury. Adding to the disease burden was the sheer brutality of the climate. The annual monsoon season was a force of nature that actively sought to reclaim the road. 4 months, torrential rains would deluge the jungle, often dropping 100 inches or more of water in a single season. Instant mud. The road, often built on hastily filled ground, would turn into an impassable quagmire of deep, clinging mud, swallowing trucks whole and halting all progress. Landslides and erosion. The steep mountain slopes, denuded by road cuts, became unstable. Monsoon rains triggered massive landslides that could wipe out entire sections of the road and bridges, undoing weeks or months of painstaking work in a single night. Flooding. Rivers swelled into raging torrents, overflowing their banks and inundating vast areas, making bridge construction a futile battle against rapidly moving water. Beyond disease and weather, the jungle itself was a relentless antagonist. Dense, tangled vegetation constantly threatened to reclaim the cleared road. Venomous snakes, leeches, and a myriad of biting insects made every moment outside camp a trial. The oppressive heat and humidity sapped strength and morale, turning manual labor into an agonizing test of will. The fight against this unseen enemy demanded as much courage and sacrifice as direct combat. Medical personnel worked tirelessly, often under primitive conditions, to treat the sick and wounded. The engineers, despite falling ill themselves, demonstrated incredible resilience, fighting tirelessly against the monsoon to keep the road open, constantly rebuilding sections washed away by floods or buried by landslides. The human cost was immense, with disease and environmental hazards causing far more casualties than Japanese bullets in many phases of the construction. The Ledo Road was a testament not just to engineering, but to human endurance against the very fury of nature, ensuring that the lifeline to China, however arduous, would ultimately prevail against all odds. While the Allied engineer battalions wrestled with the monumental challenges of jungle, mountains, and disease, they were simultaneously fighting a very real and often brutal war against the Imperial Japanese Army. The Ledo Road was not being built in a safe, rear-echelon environment. It was being carved through an active combat zone, with every mile of progress hotly contested. This forced the engineer units to operate as both builders and soldiers, constantly vigilant against a determined and often fanatical enemy. The Japanese High Command, initially confident that the natural barriers of northern Burma made a new land route to China impossible, gradually became aware of the Ledo Road's construction. Their intelligence underestimated its scale and potential impact for a long time, dismissing it as an impractical Allied folly. However, as the road pushed deeper into Burma, threatening their strategic positions and supply lines, their resistance intensified. Japanese opposition took several forms. Ambushes and raids. Small, highly effective Japanese patrols and guerrilla units frequently infiltrated the dense jungle surrounding the roadhead and newly constructed sections. They specialized in ambushing isolated work parties, truck convoys, and construction camps. These sudden brutal attacks often involved machine guns, mortars, and close-quarters fighting, designed to disrupt progress, destroy equipment, and inflict casualties. The engineers, armed primarily for self-defense, had to be constantly on guard, with perimeter defenses and patrols becoming a daily necessity. Direct attacks on the roadhead. As the Allied offensive pushed southward, clearing the path for the road, major Japanese units would sometimes launch direct, desperate assaults on the roadhead itself. These were often fierce, frontal attacks designed to halt construction, seize territory, and inflict maximum damage. Battles erupted where engineers had to drop their tools, grab their rifles, and fight alongside infantry to defend their hard-won ground. Sabotage. Japanese infiltrators and local collaborators sometimes attempted to sabotage sections of the road, blowing up bridges or culverts that had taken weeks to construct, or mining newly laid stretches of road to disrupt convoys. This required constant vigilance from engineer patrols and extensive mine-clearing operations. Aerial reconnaissance and harassment. Although the Allied air forces gained increasing superiority in the CBI theater, Japanese reconnaissance planes would occasionally spot road construction or convoys, leading to limited, but dangerous, bombing or strafing runs. This constant threat meant that the engineer battalions, particularly the American units including the African American engineers, had to function as highly adaptable combat units. They were trained not just in construction, but also in infantry tactics, perimeter defense, and engaging the enemy. Their bulldozers and graders were often operated under armed guard, and heavy construction equipment could be quickly converted for defensive purposes. Their specialized vehicles, like the dukus, amphibious trucks, could be used to ferry troops and supplies into areas inaccessible to traditional transport. The role of the engineer as a combat soldier was particularly evident during the crucial advances of the Northern Combat Area Command, NCAC, under General Stilwell, whose forces, including American, Chinese, and Merrill's marauders, were simultaneously pushing to clear Burma. The road's progress was directly tied to battlefield success. Every mile gained by fighting infantry opened the path for the engineers to follow and extend the supply line. Conversely, the road itself was a vital enabler for those fighting units, ensuring they received the fuel, ammunition, and reinforcements to continue their advance. The dangers of building under fire exacted a heavy toll. Casualties from direct enemy action, though often overshadowed by the ravages of disease, were a grim reality. Engineers lived with the constant knowledge that a Japanese ambush or an unexpected patrol could appear from the dense jungle at any moment, turning their construction site into a battlefield. The Ledo Road, therefore, was not merely an engineering triumph. It was a testament to the courage and adaptability of soldiers who built with one hand and fought with the other. This relentless, two-front battle against both nature and a determined Japanese enemy underscored the strategic imperative of this road to hell, proving that its very construction was an act of war, fundamentally crucial to breaking Japan's stranglehold on China and ultimately influencing the tide of the Pacific conflict. After years of unimaginable toil, relentless combat, and a brutal struggle against nature and disease, the seemingly impossible dream of the Ledo Road finally became a reality. It was a testament to sheer human will and a monumental achievement in wartime engineering. The moment of its completion was not marked by a single grand ceremony, but by a simple, profound junction deep within the Burmese jungle. On January 28, 1945, near the village of Mong-yu in northern Burma, the newly carved Ledo Road officially linked up with the old, recaptured Burma Road. This was the moment of destiny, the culmination of an arduous, 1,079-mile journey that had stretched from Ledo in Assam, India, through the Patkai Mountains and dense Burmese jungle, to establish a continuous overland supply route to China. The gap was closed. China was no longer isolated. The moment of junction was symbolic, connecting the new road of Allied ingenuity and sacrifice with the old road, a symbol of China's desperate struggle against Japanese aggression. It was a quiet triumph, but its strategic implications resonated across the entire CBI theater. The road, which had taken over 3 years to build, was now open for business. Soon after, on February 4, 1945, the first convoy of 113 trucks, laden with 200 tons of vital supplies, rolled out from Ledo. It was led by General Stilwell's former driver, and symbolically, the first vehicle to cross the border into China was a jeep carrying General Stilwell himself. This convoy, a tangible demonstration of the road's success, embarked on the 1,100-mile journey to Kunming, China, arriving on February 15 to a jubilant reception. The hump airlift, though continuing, now had a robust, complementary land route, finally alleviating the crushing supply bottleneck. The successful completion and opening of the Ledo Road, now officially renamed the Stilwell Road in honor of its tenacious champion, represented a profound psychological and logistical victory for the Allies. Strategic lifeline to China, the road became a vital artery, pumping millions of tons of fuel, ammunition, food, and heavy equipment directly into China. This allowed Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek's forces to re-equip, retrain, and launch more effective offensives against the Japanese, tying up crucial enemy divisions. Boost to Allied morale. For the American, Indian, and Chinese troops who had fought and built on the CBI front, the road's completion was a powerful symbol of their perseverance and the defeat of seemingly insurmountable odds. It proved that their sacrifices had not been in vain. Defiance of Japanese expectations. The Japanese High Command had confidently asserted that such a road was impossible to build through the terrain and under constant attack. Its completion shattered this strategic assumption, demonstrating Allied capability for massive logistical feats even in the most challenging theaters. The road to hell and back, completed at immense human cost and against incredible odds, played a pivotal, if often understated, role in accelerating the end of World War II in Asia. While the war would ultimately be decided by other major campaigns, the ability to effectively supply China from India was a critical factor in maintaining a multi-front war against Japan. It diverted Japanese resources, weakened their resolve, and provided a powerful symbol of Allied determination to fight until ultimate victory. The junction at Mong-yu was more than just two roads meeting. It was a junction of destiny, where the relentless will of Allied engineers and soldiers finally conquered nature and secured a vital pathway to liberation. The arduous, brutal, and ultimately triumphant journey of the Ledo Road, often overshadowed by the more dramatic campaigns of World War II, stands today as one of the conflict's most profound and enduring legacies. It was more than just a logistical marvel. It was a testament to the unyielding power of human will, engineering ingenuity, and the collective courage of diverse forces fighting against impossible odds. This road to hell and back fundamentally reshaped a forgotten theater of war and carved a permanent place in the annals of wartime heroism and logistical achievement. The legacy of the Ledo Road is multifaceted and deeply significant. Logistical triumph. The road achieved its primary objective. It broke the logistical stranglehold on China. By connecting Assam, India, directly to the old Burma Road and into China, it provided a robust, high-capacity overland supply route. This allowed millions of tons of vital supplies, fuel, ammunition, weapons, medical equipment, to flow into China, complementing the hump airlift and ensuring Chiang Kai-shek's armies could continue fighting effectively against Japan. It showcased how monumental engineering could overcome extreme geographical barriers to achieve strategic goals. Engineering marvel, the construction of over 1,000 miles of all-weather road, with 700 bridges and 10,000 culverts, through dense jungle, treacherous mountains, and malarial swamps, in the midst of an active combat zone, was an unparalleled feat. It pushed the boundaries of wartime civil engineering and construction techniques, demonstrating incredible adaptability and problem-solving under extreme pressure. The parallel oil pipeline was an equally vital and impressive engineering achievement. Unsung heroes and racial justice. The Ledo Road is a powerful and poignant story of unsung heroism, particularly highlighting the indispensable contributions of African American engineer battalions. Despite facing systemic racism and segregation within the U.S. military, these men performed with extraordinary skill, bravery, and dedication, battling not only the elements and the Japanese but also prejudice. Their tenacity and competence proved their immense worth, ensuring the road's completion and leaving an indelible mark on both military history and the fight for civil rights. Their sacrifices and achievements, once overlooked, are now rightfully recognized as foundational to the Allied victory. Strategic impact on Japan. The road's completion delivered a significant strategic and psychological blow to the Imperial Japanese Army. It shattered their confidence in the impenetrability of natural barriers, forced them to divert precious resources to a difficult and costly land war in Burma, and helped revitalize Chinese resistance. By maintaining a viable, active front in China, the Ledo Road tied down millions of Japanese troops, preventing their redeployment to other critical Pacific theaters where the Allies were advancing. Symbol of Allied determination. The very existence of the Ledo Road, carved from an impossible dream, became a powerful symbol of Allied determination to fight until ultimate victory, regardless of the odds or the environment. It proved that Allied ingenuity and combined efforts could overcome any obstacle. Today, while much of the original Ledo Road has been reclaimed by the jungle or fallen into disrepair, its historical significance endures. It serves as a permanent reminder of a forgotten front and the incredible human cost and triumph of a logistical war. The road to hell and back was more than just a pathway through the wilderness. It was a testament to the fact that the liberation of Europe and the defeat of Imperial Japan were ultimately secured not just on the grand battlefields, but through the relentless, often invisible, grind of engineering, supply, and the indomitable spirit of its diverse builders. It ensured that China's voice would not be silenced, and that the path to victory, however arduous, would ultimately be paved by human will.